everybody. Thank you for joining us. I am Sarah Bain, and with me, I have my panel who need to introduce themselves.
Hey everyone, Tyree Burks, founder and CEO of Players Health.
I'm Troy Vosseller. I'm co-founder of Generator. Happy to be here today.
So Tyree, as the CEO of Players Health, can you tell me a little more about what Players Health is and what the true pain point is that you guys are solving?
Yeah, so Players Health was really founded on a really strong mission. Our mission is to create the safest and most accessible environment for an athlete to play the sport that they love. Safety is really important for us. When we think about the problem that Players Health is solving, when you think about youth sports, we support over 30,000 sports organizations. And think of who's played sports when they were a kid growing up. Almost every hand in here. Kids think they come into an environment where they're completely safe. We manage the safety of an athlete by implementing risk management policies and protocols. Think of us as a drive safe program. The more they do that, the cheaper their liability insurance becomes. So we are an insurance company that cares about the health and safety of an athlete.
Awesome. Troy, give us a little more.
Yeah, so Generator, we are a startup accelerator and venture capital firm. We started a little over 10 years ago in Wisconsin, across the border. And since then, today we operate more than $75 million of funding, and we operate programs and venture funds in 43 cities across 20 states and 2 countries. Our mission is to be the best partner for a community to invest in its best and brightest. So we run these 12-week-long accelerator programs. Tyree and Players Health went through one of our very early programs, going back 8-9 years ago. But we invest $100,000 into each company with the hope that they can continue to grow that company and create a lot of wealth and jobs for themselves, for their employees, for their investors, and for their community. In total, we've worked with over 1,000 startups now, and we're fortunate to run a number of programs here in the Twin Cities. So we just launched a new initiative called the MSP Equity Fund. It's a fund of funds led by my partner, Al Cornish, to invest in Black, Brown, and women-led startups in Minnesota. So we're excited to launch that as well.
Awesome. So when you're investing in companies, what do you look for in a startup, in founders, and what specifically intrigued you about Players Health?
Yeah, so I think as cliche as it sounds, it really comes down to the people, right? We're investing in people. Do I think that this founder, this CEO is formidable? And loosely speaking, it's this amalgamation of, aptitude, competence, IQ, EQ. Put another way, is this someone who gets their way in life? I always think that's a good litmus test. Meaning, like if you put hurdles or barriers in front of them, are they creative enough or intelligent enough or resourceful enough or, perseverant enough to overcome those hurdles one way or another? And so, it comes down to, is this founder formidable? Number one. Number two, is this a large and growing market? Do we think that this could be a venture-backable startup? Back of the envelope, if we were to squint and the founder could execute and the market adopted this, could this be at least a $100 million plus company at some point in the future? And then ROI, do we think that this is the best place to invest our money? We're fortunate to manage and invest money on behalf of others. And so we have a fiduciary duty to invest in what we believe are the best investments. And so that's very much part of our criteria.
Awesome. So Tyree, I know that the two of you have a good relationship, and you were given the opportunity and a little bit of flexibility on who you wanted to sit on this panel with you. So why did Troy come to mind, or why did you pick Troy specifically?
Well, honestly, there was no other, I didn't even think about it hard. As soon as I was asked, and I always like to give people their roses while they're still alive. This company is not here, and I'm not in this position had Troy and Joe had not taken the chance on me. When I first started my business, I didn't even know how to balance a checkbook. Literally, I didn't. I was fresh from playing football, and I had a passion to create safe spaces for kids. These guys, the first cohort, we didn't even make it in. So but I stayed in contact with them. I didn't take it personally. And we built the relationship over the years. So there were times when I almost gave up. They were right there saying, hey, you should keep going. I got one more introduction for you. And it was always one more introduction, one more way that they can help me. And literally, I'm not here, this company's not here, had these guys not invested in me and not invested in me over time. It wasn't that first check. It was all of the other ways that they supported me over the years, even when they weren't directly connected with the company, either on my board or as advisors, but they were one call away.
So, Troy hasn't been on the board, but yet you guys have had a really good relationship for 12 years? Is it 12 years?
At least 10.
Plus? At least 10. Okay. So how have you been able to establish that, and how have you been able to maintain that relationship?
I think part of it, like we should go back to the genesis a little bit. You know, Tyree mentioned he applied for the very first generator cohort. So this is in 2012. And at the time, the company was called Team Interval, if I recall. And it was a completely different product, right? So it was still in the sports tech space, but it really revolved around a communication tool for leagues, coaches, and teams and parents and so forth. A communication tool, a messaging tool. And we thought it was interesting. You know, we actually, believe it or not, met Tyree at a similar conference. I think it was the Wisconsin Entrepreneurs Conference held in Madison. And he was one of the pitch competitions. And it was actually another angel investor. So another angel investor, Andy Schrago, a member of Wisconsin Investment Partners, so an angel group in Madison, Wisconsin, who really, I think, took a liking to Tyree and his business and is the one who made that first introduction. So we met Tyree at an angel conference like this. We met him through another angel investor who you know we had syndicated with. And so I just think that speaks to kind of the spirit of this room and the spirit of angel investing. From that, again, he applied for the first program, unfortunately was not accepted, but stayed in touch. And I think if I had one piece of advice for entrepreneurs, I go back to that formidable definition, just continue to communicate. Hey, here's what I'm doing now. Here's what I'm doing now. And sure enough, he pivoted into what has become Players Health today. I mean, it's even pivoted more along the way, but it pivoted away from the initial concept into Players Health. And then, you know, in our second year in 2013 is when we invested, and he was able to go through our Generator Accelerator program in Milwaukee. And, you know, from that point on, you know, again, our goal is we don't take a board seat. At a certain point in the future, we're a de minimis investor, right? At the time, we were only investing, I think, 70 or 90K. Today, it's, you know, 100K. But, you know, Tyree's raised millions of dollars. And so from a cap table perspective, we're minuscule. We're not a board member. You know, I'm not an advisor formally to the company. But, you know, a goal that we have is sometimes when you remove those restrictions, you can, I think, be more of a help or a different kind of help to a founder. And again, I think this speaks to the beauty of angel investing, where sometimes you have to give up some of that control to actually have more influence, believe it or not.
Yeah, can you dive in a little bit on, you know, Troy had said a good communicator and communicating, but can you talk about how you specifically have engaged early investors and continue to engage them?
Yeah, and I think he makes a perfect point in that. I think as we got into later rounds of funding, it was almost like they didn't have a dog in the fight. So when we were raising our Series A, our Series B round, they were giving me advice going, this is how you should think about it. This is how you should negotiate it. Knowing that we were going to come up with some terms and they were going to be a part of those terms. So he was able to give me unbiased feedback in a way that allowed me to be able to show up from a position of strength, of knowledge, because I didn't know any of this stuff. Like, I'm literally starting from scratch. And every deal was a new opportunity, it was new everything. And so having these guys along with me, helping me think through certain things, I could ask the dumb questions and not feel dumb. I can ask them and they go, oh, this is how you should think about these things, was just a huge help.
So diving into that a little more, when things have gone off the rails or things aren't all sunshine and butterflies and rainbows, how are you communicating and how are you really leveraging early investors like Troy?
Well, I'm really vulnerable about every mistake I've made along the years. I see them all as gifts. I operate with complete transparency. And so when I sit down with our investors, when I sit down with any of our advisors and things are going wrong, I need help. So I'm operating from a place of humility. I don't have it all figured out. This is what I'm going through. What advice can you give me? And of course, they may not be happy about it, but at least they know. And so we can all, the more people that understand the problem that we're dealing with, that are in the room to help us solve it, the better chance we have of solving the problem. And so I want to be as transparent as I possibly can. And my integrity is on the line with everything that I do. And so I like to live that way. And so those are the kind of the conversations that I have. I'm operating with transparency, and I'm seeking for advice. And I'm listening to that advice, and I want to execute on it.
Yeah, so Troy, from the standpoint of the investor, how are you helping the founders, or how are you supporting them when things are going off the rails?
I think it ranges from just, you know, being a friend that they can reach out to and talk to candidly and you know, bouncing ideas off of and hopefully providing as unbiased of an opinion as possible. But then more tactical as well. So, you know, here in the Twin Cities, we we run an initiative called On-Ramp Insurance with Allianz Life and Securian Financial. And so each year now at Allianz Field, we host a conference every spring designed to connect insurance carriers with startups, insurtech startups. And we've been doing that for going on 9 years now. And so at the earlier events and through to today, Tyree as a portfolio company gets priority to be a speaker or get meetings with insurance carriers or corporate venture arms or corporate innovation departments. And, I think he's gotten, business deals from that. He's gotten investor deals from that, as well as just kind of branding and visibility. So I kind of put it into two buckets. One is kind of, let's call it like friend, informal therapy, advice, if you will. The other end is more tactical. Like how can we make introductions to investors, to customers, distribution channels, you name it.
And on that point, that conference saved our company. I called Troy and Joe. I'm like, hey, I'm about to sell Players Health. I'm done. And these guys invited me to come and present Players Health at On-Ramp. I go and I present. I thought I was going to be like, low on the totem pole, high priority. They put me main stage. And it was like 10 o'clock. It was packed, standing room only. I present. A week later, one of the guys there offered me $3 million for the business. I turned it down. He ended up investing. We ended up going and raised millions of dollars. And here we are today, all because they told me to try, hey, just don't do it yet. Come to this event, present, and see what happens. And
all I got was a free drink ticket.
So the two of you can't have a relationship for 10 plus years and not form somewhat of a friendship along the way. And so I'm curious to know how specifically you have navigated that friendship with financial implications, investor relations in there. So how are the two of you navigating this whole thing?
I don't think it doesn't really feel like it's all about the money, I think, in terms of that. In the beginning, it was really, were we investable? And I think afterwards, I saw them as friends. Like I called them up. I wanted to spend time with them. These were guys, Joe and Troy are really just good human beings. I want to spend time with those kind of people. I want to do business with those kind of people as often as I possibly can. So we'll go to a conference. Me and him are at the bar together. We're going and hanging out together.
That's the free drink ticket.
Exactly. I'll buy the drinks. But also, when I'm celebrating something, I want to call them too. And when I'm dealing with something, I want to call them. But also, I want to celebrate them. Anytime they need me to come and speak and share about Generator, please call me. I'm going to be the first one to show up and communicate how these guys invested in me when no one would. Mm-hmm. And this is what the result of it was.
And I'm trying to bridge this to angel investors in the audience. And I think a takeaway and part of our investment thesis is we do not have a concentrated portfolio. It's not as if over 10 years we've made 10 investments and we put tens of millions into each of those 10 bets. We are very much a volume-based approach, just like a Techstars or and just like what I would advise most angel investors to do. Take whatever you're comfortable investing and spread it into as many bets as possible for a couple of reasons. One, I think it increases the floor of your returns through that diversification. No different from an index fund or a mutual fund in the public equities market. But then two, it also allows you to not be overly blinded, financially blinded and emotional, because you'd have so much to gain or lose. And I think people tend to, on the order of magnitude, lean more on the negative side. What could I lose from this investment? And so that's something that's helped. I mean, at the end of the day, we want Players Health to be successful. Our interests are aligned. Generator is a stockholder in Players Health, and we will make money if Tyree makes money. That's very much aligned. At the same time, if Tyree completely goes to zero, we'll still have a good portfolio. And I think that frees us to have more of a friendship and to give better advice.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's something that we talk about all the time, as you said, at Techstars. So, as a role of an angel investor, how does that change over time, specifically with passive investing versus active investing? I would love to get your thoughts on that, Trey.
I think, when companies are in, we run a formal 12-week program. We're investing, and then these companies are, working out of our office for this 12-week period. We have structured programming. We're connecting them with mentors. We're meeting with them at least twice a week on a scheduled basis. We're connecting them with investors. After that, it is more informal and it's more unstructured. And for an entrepreneur, you get out what you put in. So if someone like Tyree's texting, calling, or emailing me, or asking for something, or soliciting advice, I'm going to give it, right? Similarly, we have founders who, after the program's done, we rarely hear from. That's their prerogative. That's their style. I don't think it's a wise move if you're an entrepreneur. I know from an investor standpoint, it's frustrating because my default thinking is if I stop hearing from you, it's probably going bad. And I think I'm usually right about that. But sometimes it's not always correlated. But I want that relationship to continue. I'm going to try to reach out to you. In fact, we were just doing a quarterly report, and I was looking back at our second fund, and companies, there's a handful of companies that's like, I haven't heard from this founder, so I'm going to reach out, and you'll learn something new. And again, it goes back to this volume-based approach. At the end of the day, if any one of these bets that we make fails, like we're not out to dry. Like we'll still be fine as a fund. And I just think that frees us up. So the relationship becomes more informal over time, and certain companies, and usually it's the ones that persist and continue to be successful, will maintain that relationship. But it's bi-directional. Like I have to be reaching out, they have to be reaching out, and we want that cohesion. We want that friendship.
Yeah, Tyree, what have you learned about managing expectations of your angel investors over time?
Well, I like to over-communicate. So every quarter we have an investor call. And I want to share as much information about where we are, what we need help with. And I think, especially with all of your early stage investors, at a certain point, there's a network that you now have. I've talked with over 1,500 investors along this journey. I have 46 investors on my cap table. Every quarter, I'm connecting with them. I'm communicating where we are. Here's where we are. Here's the help we need. I always need help. I can't do this by myself. And so I think the more that investor understands where the company is, you don't have to be perfect. Stop thinking you have to be. Communicate what you need help with. And as an investor, they're motivated to help you. And so the more you can provide avenues for them to be helpful and help you grow your business, the more they're going to lean in.
So you kind of touched on the next question I wanted to ask, but I'd be curious to know, how have angel investors really impacted your business? And specifically, why are they so important?
Well, I'm a people person. So I like to build relationships with people that I do business with, and I like to build relationships. Like, this isn't a transaction. Every investor that has given me money, they've seen me grow as a person over time. Like, it's just a different relationship over time. Now, of course, not every investor that I have a personal relationship with, but they know me on a deeper level than they would any other investor. And so I think over time, not only am I over-communicating, not only am I showing them ways that they can help me, but they're also seeing me grow. They want to see me win. So I want to turn every investor into a cheerleader for me to help me grow. And then I want to keep giving that back. So it's not like I'm hoarding all of this for myself, but they're seeing ways that I'm going to continue to give back. They know that I'm going to contribute to the ecosystem. And so I think that's also really important in the very beginning. You get angel investment capital, make good on it. Make sure that the investment grows. And then that's going to support your business. You're going to become an angel investor, and it grows the ecosystem. That's the only way Minnesota Angel Investment Fund can grow. Founders have to be successful, pay it forward. Investors have to continue to invest. But they can only do that if you win. And so it's really important that, we have good, successful outcomes as investments happen.
Yeah. Is there anything that you'd add to that, Troy? I know angel investors are super important to our companies at Techstars, and I would imagine they are for you at Generator as well. So I'd be curious to hear.
I'll even say how it comes back. I mentioned this kind of bi-directional relationship. So we met through an angel investor, right? So Tyree and Generator connected through a third party, through an angel investor. So that's step one. But then more contemporaneously, we were just talking backstage about a company that Tyree referred to us, a company that Tyree's been mentoring and who applied to one of our programs. So that's another way of how this relationship comes full circle, where we've invested in the company, but now we have these founders like Tyree and 1,000 others who are out there meeting other entrepreneurs, other peers, and hopefully directing some to us where we hopefully can invest or be helpful. And I think that's just another aspect of call it deal flow or network building.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to open it up to the audience for questions. So think about what questions you have for Troy and Tyree here. But if someone was just getting into angel investing, what are some of the most important things that you think that they need to consider? they need to think about that you haven't touched on already?
Yeah, there's no amount too small. So I think some people come into this thinking I need to invest $1 million in order to be an angel investor. The reality is we have angel investors who invest in our portfolio companies as small as $2,500 in some instances. Now, how do they do that? Oftentimes it might be through an angel group or a syndicate, meaning one person will say, hey, I'm going to collect a bunch of these smaller checks, $2,000, $5,000 checks, and we're going to pool that and invest it into a company. So I think that's a misconception. You can be an angel investor, as long as you're accredited and so forth, at a much smaller level, and you can start playing. And you should, because there's no better way than through, and you want to start building that portfolio. For better or worse, I think there's a good line that you like one of the first 10 companies you see, and then one of the next 100, and then one of the next 1,000. So meaning your aperture gets tighter, you get more experience, you like what you figure out what you like. But if you just think that you're going to hit a grand slam at your first at bat, you're probably wrong. And in fact, like look it up with Major League Baseball. The number of players who hit a home run on their first at bat is like 13. And so you got to start investing. Feel free to start at a very small level and build up from there. So that'd be one part of advice. And then the second is find a tribe. Like find an angel group, whether it's, Go for Angels here. I mentioned Wisconsin Investment Partners. Use online tools like AngelList Syndicates or WeFunder or Republic or other crowdfunding sites. But, find these people that you can invest alongside that will allow you to make smaller investments. And then if you want my advice, I would take a very much a diversified portfolio approach. Like treat this like index investing. If you think that you're going to pick the 10 best startups, congratulations. And like you and Warren Buffett should have a beer together, or a Diet Coke, or a, what is he, Dairy Queen guy, right? A dilly bar. But just investing in a lot of companies, I think, is the best way to create the best returns, flat out.
And I think from an investor's perspective, an entrepreneur's perspective, get to know quick. Don't waste the time with the entrepreneur. Time is truly life, not money. And as an entrepreneur, you're just getting going. All you have is a clock. It's a clock that starts in terms of the amount of runway that I have. So get to know quick. Be very transparent around your investment thesis. Let the founder know exactly, these are the kind of companies I invest in. This is the runway that I'm looking for. It helps them get to a place on whether they even have a shot or not, so that we don't waste each other's time. I think the more transparent we can be around that, the better off we can all be.
Yeah, agreed.
I'll give one more. Try to step outside of your industry. I think sometimes, let's say you're a medical doctor, and you might say, well, I'm going to be the best person to evaluate medical devices or healthcare IT startups. Maybe, but I also think you come with such a bias and such a gravity of the status quo that you might be the worst person to evaluate that. And just like have a degree of self-awareness around that. I think a lot of angels are guilty of this. They'll be like, we're evaluating a cat litter company, and we're going to ask a veterinarian about it. We did this. Every veterinarian was like, you should never do that. Like, here's all the reasons it won't work, and blah, 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 blah. It was our most successful. We said, we think it's interesting, and I am allergic to cats. And it became our most successful investment, right? A cat litter company. And so I just think, have the self-awareness as an investor to say, you know what? I actually have generated most of my wealth as a medical doctor. I should actually diversify. I should invest in manufacturing tech and CPG and e-commerce and insurtech and other things outside of, what I think my comfort zone is.
Yeah, great point. Questions from the audience? We'll go in the back.
Yeah, this is for Mr. Burks. I would just say thank you for your insight today, and can you come and talk to some of my founders? Because it sounds like it'd be great to invest with you. My founders won't give me the time of day. They're not giving me my reporting requirements. I need to just file taxes. I mean, they're a pain in the ass. So good on you.
Definitely will. Just let me know.
Anybody else? Oh.
Tyree, and really to Troy and even Sarah, I think at this point, our ecosystem has evolved a lot in the past 10 years. I think our startup ecosystem is more sophisticated. There's more integration. There's, this room is a great, I think, indication of that, right? Tyree, you've raised over $30 million, and only 200,000 has come from Minnesota. So what would your advice, or what's your hope or wish or dream for how Minnesota can be better investing in Minnesota and finding great talent like you to really create the actual flywheel?
That's a really good question. When I think about the Minnesota tech ecosystem, specifically when it comes to investing, early stage investments, the bar is set too high. We didn't know who we were going to become in Players Health. Along the way, there's no way we would have been able to raise capital here in Minneapolis because of how high the bar needs to be set and the risk tolerance. We have to lower our risk tolerance a tad to actually see the founder. And like, I am a miracle. And this company is a miracle because no one would have invested in this ecosystem at the stage. When we raised 4, 10, 30. At our 10 and 30, it's a not a for sure thing, but that's the time in which investors here in Minneapolis want to get involved. It's too late. Now, at the time when we were raising our $4 million round, that was the time to get in. That was the time where I couldn't get the time of day because we didn't know who we were going to be. We knew where we were going. We had some great traction, but revenue marks and things like that the bar was just set way too high, and I think we just have to address that and bet on the founder. Early stage investments, truly early stage, pre-Series A, seed, pre-seed, and call it your first check. We have to look at the founder and truly invest in founders. And then you'll have the opportunity to see companies like ours that are 9-figure companies that have a strong foundation of investment local. But until we change that, it's going to be hard to see that to happen along the way.
I would say, I think having, programs and incredible funds such as Groove and seeing the amount of people in this room and wanting to get actively involved in investing is fantastic. And I think one of the things that we do really, really well here in Minnesota is have incredible organizations that support startups, but they only support them here locally. And so having programs such as Techstars and programs such as Generator that have a broader reach outside of the Minnesota area is so incredibly important because we're spreading the word outside of here of, hey, look at all these companies that are coming here. Look at all of these companies that are doing really cool things in Minnesota. And so we're giving exposure to our region, but giving exposure on a much broader national, worldwide level to get people to come here, not necessarily just to invest in companies here locally, but to see all of the really incredible things that we're doing here in Minnesota. And so I think we have to continue to expand that, and we have to encourage all of the great organizations here to continue to try and spread the word and the reach about what it is that they're doing.
I agree. I think the people that need to hear the message aren't in this room. And so I actually don't blame angel investors. If anything, I think angel investors probably disproportionately do invest their dollars locally, which is a good thing. I think the real money movers is, it's the institutional side, right? And so if we don't believe that our next generation locally is the best investment, no one else will believe that. Silicon Valley doesn't believe that, right? Boston doesn't believe that. New York doesn't believe that, right? And yet, time and time again, we as a community, our corporations, foundations, endowments, universities, pension funds, everyone at the institutional level, we are subsidizing new venture creation on the coast. We are exporting our cash at light speed that people don't even realize. And please fact check me on this next comment. The state of Minnesota Investment Board, at the time of the Ukraine war, had more invested in Russia than they did in Minnesota startups. So just put that in perspective. Are we investing our balance sheets in what we care about for the next generation? And if you're on a nonprofit, nonprofits are really guilty. Large foundations are guilty of this. If you're on a foundation or nonprofit board, ask yourself first, who are you contracting out to manage your money? Step one, they're probably on the coast. Step two, where are they investing that money, right? Is any of it coming here? Or are we content with taking crumbs from the bread loaf of the 95% of the corpus that's being invested, on the coast and granting it out and feeling like we did our job? There's no better compliment than investing in someone. It's far greater of a compliment than giving them a grant, in my opinion.
What other questions? Oh. Jack Dempsey.
Thank you. Yes, Jack Dempsey. First, thanks to the panel, all three of you. What a great way to cap off the day. Really, really terrific. Tyree, can you share a bit of your life story? I've heard it, and it's very inspirational, and a lot of folks here haven't heard that story. So let's share a bit of that.
Definitely will. Really appreciate it. So my life's mission is to create a world of love, acceptance, and safety. I grew up in a place where safety was a luxury. I grew up in the south side of Chicago, grew up in the projects, Argo Gardens, and sports saved my life. And so when I look at what we do here at Players Health, it's not transaction. Like, it is truly who I am. And it's all I want to really do, because I see the impact that we can make in sports that I love so much. 95% of Fortune 500 companies are led by CEOs that played sports, youth sports and college sports. Sports run the world. And when we think about the environment that a kid comes into, that's where my passion lies. And so I had an opportunity to play collegiately here at Winona. That's how I ended up here in Minnesota. I met my wife. And then I had a ton of injuries when I played professionally. I had a short professional career, 3 bulging discs in my neck, torn my hamstring off my tibia, torn ligaments in my toe. And what do I do next? Well, I wanted to give back to sports because it gave so much to me. I traveled the world. I am alive today because I found acceptance. That's my second one. So safety is really important. Acceptance, I was accepted in the right group. I could have easily been in jail or I was in sports. Those were the two paths. So streets would have ended me in jail or dead, and sports landed me where I'm at today. And so acceptance is really important to me. I want to make sure that everyone that comes in contact with me feels acceptance and love. So my company was founded off of a life insurance policy that my mom, a week before my mom passed, she passed when I was 19. She got a life insurance policy literally the week before she passed. She was hit by a drunk driver. That capital seed funded this company. And thank you. And so it's kind of serendipitous that we happen to be an insurance company, but I know the value of helping organizations and we deal with emotional, physical, sexual abuse, injuries, catastrophic injuries in youth sports every day. So at a time where kids and parents feel and think their kids are safe and these things happen, they want an organization that really cares, that didn't just sell them a policy and say good luck and then increase their rates when incidents do happen. How can we help these things prevent things from happening? And so, yeah, our company, because of our mission, we started this business almost 10 years ago now. The first 5 years of our business, we struggled. But I refused to give up. And within the past 4 years, we went from $1 million in premium to $6.7 million in premium to $30 million in premium last year. We'll do $75 million this year. And it's because of passion, because of our mission, and because we just refuse to give up. And I think this is an angel investor. Troy and them didn't know I would become this, but they hoped. And they saw something in me and said, we're going to take a shot on this guy. He continues to keep showing up. And I think for any entrepreneur that's in the early stages, brand new, don't feel like you have to have it all figured out. I didn't know anything. And never give up if you truly believe that you are making a difference in what you're creating. And if you do that and you outlast, you will be there in the end. And you won't need to say you told everyone so. It'll already be said by just existing. And I think I'm just proud to be here and happy that I'm able to share my appreciation for, folks that believe in me in the beginning.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, that means we get to happy hour.
And Tyree did give everyone drink tickets for the next session.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Troy, Tyree, thank you guys. This was great.
Thanks,